aren't connected.
No, that's why he's well.
Good.
It wasn't a Hamas nick, was it?
No, I came to the guy bought the property and it was supposed to be empty. He told me yesterday he came in, no lock on the door. So when I came in, I walked in and I hear noise upstairs. Okay, I go. Don't call police. I'm homeless. Overnight you're homeless again. And then he told me, he said, what should I do now? So I don't know. Maybe after you change lock, you give me one key.
Serious?
House is empty. I was like, yes, it needs to be empty.
Never.
Yeah, she only got kicked out.
There, if not for the grace of God, go I or something, no? How's it go?
There's so many homeless
I know, but it's a true thing. If Chad translated to Rosh Hashanah, if not for the love of Hashem, that's where I would be.
No, it's the truth.
Rachman
Oh, I
Hashem.
saw somebody a couple of doors away from Landau also was evicted from the house. Okay, it's a gallery, but a known gallery. Whatever, but there is a certain, I feel a certain rachmanis.
I don't feel sorry anymore.
Rachman will call my. Okay. Good morning. Good evening. Oh, sorry. Good evening. We're starting. We're up to Dafim Gimel and Dalef, 4 lines from the top. As I said, it's Kedai to have a Chumash in front of you, and we're going to start again. The Torah tells us that there's a mitzvah of Pora Aduma. The first passage dashing it says in the Satan Oisa, V'hoitzi Oisa, V'shochat Oisa, 3 times the word Oisa. So very quickly, somebody will explain to us what is the 3 Oisas coming to Darshan. No, what's in the Satan Oisa? No, what's in the Satan Oisa? No, Chaim, what's the Satan Oisa? Only this one. No, the Drush. Satan Oisa, only this one was given to laws of the scan. Future Pos Aduma were not given to the scan. Who were they given to? Machlokas. Oh, either Kohen Gadol or a Kohen. Okay, that's the first drasha we have. The second drasha is V'hoitzi Oisa. V'hoitzi Oisa to tell you you're not allowed to take another one. Very good. We had a Machlokas there as well. What about a donkey? It's got to do with the machlokas of Dosh Tamid Dekro or not. What's the machlokas? That means like this. That is the reason because you might come to a michshel. Other people think you meant to do the other one, and then the donkey is okay because the donkey only have the michshel, or is it? And then finally it says v'shachat oiso, you're not allowed to shech too. Then we had the fonov, a machlokas Rav and Shmuel. Now this machlokas Rav and Shmuel had so many times. It should be written on our foreheads. What's this lefonov mean? According to Rav, very good. Which means that what? That a kohen has to shecht. And the fonov means Shliyasiach, he shouldn't switch off. According to Shmuel, what does it teach you? Shua, what does it mean according to Shmuel? What is it coming to tell you? Lefonov, what's the fonov going to tell you? Don't remember. How can you not remember? Remember your names. What? Azor can be sheichet. Azor is sheichet. V'shochat is a fonov. Azor is sheichet, not a kohen. V'shochat is a fonov. So those are the 4 drashas that we had on that pasuk. We also had Ulla, and Ulla said that sometimes we have a pasuk that does what? That limits the pasuk before and undoes the pasuk before, a clause which undoes the clause before. And sometimes we have a clause which is not to diminish the clause before. It all works. So sometimes you make a document, you have to write, this is not going to affect any previous clauses. Sometimes on the contrary, it is affecting previous clauses. Okay. So far we had 4 drashas, all of them based on pasuk Gimel. Then now we're up to Pasuk Dalet. V'lokach Elazar. We're up to Pasuk Dalet, and we're actually in 4 lines from the top on Mem Gimel Amud Aleph, darshaning a continuation of this parsha, and we're going to spot Ullah's sometimes Moitzi and sometimes Mekayim. Let's see the Pasuk a bit more inside. V'lokach Elazar should take from the blood with his finger to sprinkle. Now, according to Rav and Shmuel, we just had the machlokas. The previous pasuk, the shochat oisel lefonov, who's shechting? According to Rav, Elazar is shechting. According to Shmuel, who's shechting? Azor. According to Rav, it's very strange. The shochat oisel lefonov, who's shechting? Elazar. And the pasuk says, "V'lokach Elazar." Have you ever heard of such a statement? In English, it is what we call using pronouns. That means like this: if I say to you a sentence that B'tzalel went here, B'tzalel went there, B'tzalel did this, B'tzalel did that. What would the English teacher say to you? Don't say B'tzalel time. Say he went there and he did this. So Velokach Eloza, it didn't need to say Velokach Eloza according to Rav. What should it have said? Velokach, very good, Velokach. And if I would say Velokach, since it says V'shachat is the fun of according to Rav, Shachat is fun means already Eloza, so it doesn't need to say Velokach Eloza. Why'd it say Velokach Eloza? You hear the question? You ask him? You agree with the question? Oh, you agree. Velokach Eloza can be told it's so Gemara says the Shmuel that says that till now we weren't talking about Eloza because he said lefonov means it's not him shechting ladu Eloza. It comes out that only Eloza is allowed to catch the blood. Since we already mentioned it's Eloza, and now we say again it's Eloza, there's a principle in is that everybody can do it, and it comes out very interestingly that there's Machlekes Rav and Shmuel who shechts, according to Rav, Elazar shechts, according to Shmuel Ezo. But regarding catching the blood, it's the opposite way around. Oh, you already on to it? It's the opposite way around. And the logic is very simple. Because according to Rav, that it's Elazar shechting, it didn't need to say Velokach Elazar. It's coming to tell you really anybody can do it. But according to Shmuel, that V'shachta is the father is not Elazar, so they need to tell me Velokach Elazar that is Elazar. Is that clear? If it's not clear, you should stop me because it's a shame. Now, this is the place where Ula was saying that we've got a moitzi miyad mashma, meaning that this pasuk is telling you the opposite of the previous pasuk. According to Shmuel, it's coming to tell you not a zah, but rather a loza. According to Rav, it's telling you not a loza, but rather a kohen. Next pasuk, the pasuk carries on. V'lokach eloza hakoyin. So we're going on to that, but the next pasuk, we're jumping to the pasuk, which is actually pasuk Vov. V'lokach hakoyin eitz eretz. So let's see the Gemara inside. V'lokach hakoyin eitz eretz. Beis v'shlitu lahas. This is taking the things to throw them in the fire. The Shmuel that feel kohen headed. Why? Why according to Shmuel is it kohen headed? And I'll tell you why. It's straightforward. Since the previous pasuk says Elazar, and according to Shmuel, Elazar means dafka Elazar, because the previous pasuk meant anybody. So now when it says v'lokach hakoyin, it means any kohen. But the Rav, according to Rav, it's drich. According to Rav, it's a kasha. We already know it's any kohen because when he dashes the pasuk of V'lokach Elazar, it was ein mil tachavir to the Rav, it's any kohen. So the Rav, it's sakat tachavina kim delav gufa de poninu luli boy kohen. This is already a separate job. This is another job. It's not part of the kohen. Komash malon that you need a kohen. So let's go very briefly again. In pasuk Gimel, we said 4 drashas, 3 of them regarding the words oisa. I'm not going to repeat them. You should have them clear. But regarding the last drasha, v'shochat oisa lefon of Machlekes Rav and Shmuel, Rav says it's a loza shech, Shmuel says a zor shech. Comes to pasuk Dalet, they switch positions, and the reason is pashut, simple, because if you already have a loza, you don't need a loza, etc. When it comes to pasuk Vov, they all agree, meaning they all agree you need a kohen, but they're coming from 2 different directions. According to Rav, we already knew it was a kohen. He says you don't need a loza. So you still need a kohen. Why do you still need a kohen? You might have thought that this is not a part of the etzem avodah. You don't need a kohen. You still need a kohen. That's a good word. You still need a kohen. According to Shmuel, it's not that you still need a kohen. It is that what? That even a kohen works. Because until now we talk about a loza, and now you need a kohen. You have to remember all of this. When Sheach comes, the first thing we'll have to do is paraduma. And they'll say to you, am I allowed to shecht? Do you need a kohen to shecht? Do the scan kohen? So you have to remember these drashas. You'll say to them, according to Rav, what will you do? No, you can't do such a thing. What's going on? Bring a fridge. And in the case, v'lokach kohen, you'll say to him that according to everybody agrees with the kohen. Question is it like we said according to Rav, you still need a kohen even if it's not part of it. According to Shmuel, that even until now it is a lozo, this is a kohen will do. The Gemara carries on. The chibes begodav hakohen. This is already which pasuk? This is already pasuk zayin. So the pasuk there. The question is the word kohen is spare. Anybody want to tell me why pasuk is spare? Why, Sean? You tell us. Why is pasuk spare? Why is it spare?
Only a kohen can do it.
Why is it spare? Why is it spare? Because the previous kohen said it's a kohen, and both Rav and Shmuel agreed that means a real. That's a kohen. So what's the kohen say? B'kihono, meaning that he has to wear the clothes. That means not only does he have to be a kohen, but he has to wear the clothes. If somebody asks us a riddle, when will you meet a kohen? Outside the Beis HaMikdash, wearing his kohen clothes. Where will you ever meet one? By Po'aduma, when he's about to throw things into the fire. Otherwise, they won't come out of Beis HaMikdash with the kohen clothes. So now you'll have the answer to that riddle if anybody asks. According to everyone, yes. Again, the word Kohen is spare because we talk about Kohen according to Rav and Shmuel. Kohen b'kehuna l'dovos. That for future dovos, not just at the time of a loza, all dovos the Kohen has to wear his Kohen clothes. It says we had before a drasha that the first oisah on the satim oisah give it that only that one is a loza. Future dovos had machlekes, because we mentioned a few minutes ago the Kohen gadol l'dovos. If you say Kohen headed shapi. If we're going to say that all future doers, you need to have a Kohen Gadol, of course you need to have the big day Kohen Mechates or not. Answers the Gemara. Oh, because if you already need a Kohen Gadol, so B'shai will be mechayev a particular chashivus avodah. It will make sense. In what way would it be a Kohen Gadol if he's not wearing? We have a principle that a Kohen Gadol is not wearing his Kohen Gadolim clothes. Doesn't have the halachas of a Kohen Gadol. He can't do the avodah. We had this once before. If you know that Scan Kohen Gadol took over after the Kohen Gadol died. Let's say Kohen Gadol was Tommy and the Scan took over. So he won't be able to do the avodah because in 4 clothes he can't because it was Rishon Kohen. In 8 clothes he can't because make the other Kohen Gadol upset. Without being in his clothes, he's not a Kohen Gadol. So Gemara says, and something you can work out. Sometimes the pasuk tells us. So everybody agrees that you need a Kohen's clothes, even Nedoros. Okay. V'osaf ishtoy. Now we're carrying on pasuk tes, and now we're discussing gathering the ashes. We're finished with the burning. We threw everything into the fire. The cow is burnt, and now we've got ashes. So the pasuk says, "V'osaf ish toyes efa po v'niach." Ish. It doesn't need to say ish. I have to say sure. It doesn't. The Torah doesn't usually use the word ish every man. V'osaf. We know it's a man. Lahachshes azor. That the zor is allowed to gather the ashes. So one day, Mitzvah Hashem, even those of us who are not kohenim, like myself, we will have a chelik in the avodah. We'll be able to gather the ashes. So, yes, I know it's going to be very difficult because if we're Tomei, you can't make the clothes. And how can you gather ashes out here? So we'll have to use the Po'ah Duma, which was left over from Moshe Rabbeinu. We'll find us. Yeah, so ashes was hidden. Tohoi, why does it have to say Tohoi? Ashes isha to include the woman. So even the woman's allowed to gather ashes. V'hiniach, you shall place somebody that can put down. They do not have the knowledge, the ability to learn. They don't know what they're doing, and therefore they cannot. So the osaf ish is coming to include a soul. Torah coming to a woman. V'niach is only but not chereshit v'kotam. So this is referring to what? This is referring to gathering the ashes. But we've still got other things to do, and that is to collect the water and mix the water with the ashes. The war carries on. Tanan hosa. Hakol kshen kaddish. Here, the kaddish means to pour the ashes into the water into the ashes, depending on the machlekes ashitosis. Chutz b'cher shoyt v'kotan, except for cher shoyt v'kotan, which is actually identical to the halacha we just said regarding gathering the ashes. According to this Tanna Kama, the halacha of who's allowed to gather the ashes and who's allowed to put the ashes in the water is identical. Meaning, a Yisroel and a woman, yes; a child and a cher shoyt v'kotan, not. Rabbi Yehuda argues on 2 things. Let's get very clear. Rabbi Yehuda says a child is okay. Tanna Kama said a child is not okay. But a woman is no good, even though Tanna Kama says he is good. And this is very clear. When we look at pasuk tes, where it talks about the gathering of the ashes, Rabbi Yehuda didn't argue, and he agrees that a child not, a woman, yes. That means in pasuk tes, gathering the ashes, he doesn't argue. Even though it says ish, very good. Even though it says ish, he doesn't exclude the woman, and he doesn't include the child. So calling the gathering of the ashes includes the Tanna Kama. He only argues when it comes to what? When it comes to mixing, when it comes to the kiddush. My tabadu abanu. Dichsev v'lokchu. The pasuk says v'lokchu, which is in pasuk Yud side. It's quite a bit further. And the pasuk says, "V'lokchu la'tomim achas sefes achados l'osem ma'achayim keli." The pasuk in pasuk Yud Zayin is describing the mixing of the ashes with the water. And the pasuk says, "V'lokchu." The simple explanation is "V'lokchu" is what? Those which we told you before to gather the ashes, they shall take it. Lokchu la'tomim achas sefes achados. Hanoch the pasuk ba'asif for the ones I said no good to gather ashes. Pasuk b'kiddush are not allowed to gather. They're not allowed to mix the water with the ashes. But if those are permitted to gather ashes, I allow you to mix them. So that means that Yehuda, the Tanakama holds velokhu, and this is a mashma, which the words more used to the words or mashma mimela. Mashma mimela means when we have no reason that this clause is undoing the previous clause. The previous clause was what? That woman and soul permitted. Child is forbidden. And it says velokhu, they shall take. What's the simple explanation? Velokhu, they, the ones we've been talking about till now. Rabbi Yehuda, what's about Rabbi Yehuda? The pasuk of here changes. If you look carefully, in pasuk test says v'osaf in the singular. In pasuk Yud Zayin it says v'lokhu in the plural. Why have we changed from the singular to the plural? So why v'lokhu? Da'afilu koton the pasuk lachasa macha include even more. V'lokhu they shall take, which includes more than v'osaf. I permit you to have a child. Says it about Isham and Nolon. So how do the woman not? V'nosan v'lev she shall do it. V'nosan v'lokhu la'tomei v'af is possible Zayin. V'nosan olamayim chaim he shall place v'nosan v'lev v'nosan. Tesis points out, it's a short tesis, the fourth tesis of the page, that generally speaking, when the Torah uses the male language, it's not exclude women. Otherwise, most of the Torah. Over here, since the Torah already changed from v'osaf to v'lokhu, from the singular to the plural, so we see that the Torah over here is trying to change who can do it. So therefore, we take note of the change in language.
Not exclude men then.
No, v'nosno is female. Nosan he shall put, v'nosno she shall put.
If it had said v'nosno, they not exclude men.
I mean, what is not? If we want to, no, it could have said v'nosnu. And then it will be a continuation. It says v'lokhu v'nosnu. It starts off v'lokhu in the plural, and then v'nosan in the singular to tell you this extra. But why, according to the Chachamim, does it say the original apostle v'osaf in the singular and here in the plural? Because achmona v'lokach v'nosan hava minad shokl chad v'yov chad. Because achmona v'lokhu. Because achmona v'lokhu v'nosnu hava minad shokl shei v'yov chad. Because achmona v'lokhu v'nosan hava minad shokl shei v'yov chad. The reason the Torah changes, so on this particular pasuk from the plural to the singular is to tell you, you do not need to have, you can have one person gathering the ashes and two people mixing it, or you can have two people gathering the ashes and one person mixing it, and it doesn't matter. So let's go very, very briefly regarding the Kohana part. We said, the Shochat Oisel of Father Bachlikis Rav and Shmuel is the Elazar Shech, so he saw Shech's in front of it. Then we had the Lokach Elazar, which again goes the opposite way around, that's regarding catching the blood. Then regarding the next psukim, everybody agrees it's kohen. According to Shmuel, it's coming to tell you that you can manage with a kohen. According to Rabbi, you still need a kohen. Then it says kohen a couple of times, which is spare to tell you need big kohen, and not just there, but all future generations. And then we have everybody agrees regarding the gathering the ashes. Is a woman and a soul permitted? Yes. Regarding the a child cheshukot is no good. Regarding the mixing, that's the machlokas Tanakama of Yehuda. Tanakama says exactly the same. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it changes woman no, child yes. Very good. Says the Gemara, "V'lokach ezav v'tova b'mayim ishtoy." Now here we are very similar to us before. That we talk about the sprinkling, which is the next stage. We talked about gathering the ashes. We said clearly the halachos. Then we said the machlokas regarding mixing the ashes. And now we talk about the actual sprinkling. Now what happens is over here, similar to us before, is that you change positions, the opposite of what you held before. And this is moitzim yad mashma. Because before, according to Tanakama, it was referring to that woman, yes, child not. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, it was saying woman, not child, yes. And now the pasuk says, "V'lokach ezov v'tova b'mayim ishtoy." Man, not a woman, because till now we said the woman's yes, so man can say not, which until now a child not. Exactly the other way around. Because now, so we've got twice a moitzimiyat mashma of, which is what Ula wanted us to be aware, where it changes other around. It's clear, that means since according to Rabbi Yehuda, you're not allowed to have a woman for the actual mixing, and you are allowed to have a child for the mixing. When the next pasuk says regarding the sprinkling, ishtoy, it's the opposite way around. Actually, according to the Chachamim, again, it's the opposite way around, but they held that a child, not a woman, yes. So you always swap around. I brought these charts, pass it around if those who think. Nothing more, just ask the kasha that we've basically finished with all the drashas. We'll ask the kasha, we'll ask the question that we see from a Beis of Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is not noted. And if Rabbi Yehuda really argued, why is his opinion not said? Basically, Everything's permitted to sprinkle. Except for a woman and Tumtava Drignis, because Tumtava Drignis is a Sophic Isha. Tumtava, by the way, is a person that we do not see any male or female body parts. Now, Drignis is a person that has both. Since it's a Sophic, so therefore we always have to be machmir like a woman. A woman's allowed to help him and do it. So here it says clearly a child, yes, a woman, not. Now that fits in very, very nicely with the Chachomim. Says the Gemara, Dachmim Gimel on Beis, top of the page, Rabbi Yehuda does not argue. And it says the Gemara, Ma'abaya, that it wasn't necessary for him to argue. Why is it not necessary to argue? Because once you know the previous argument, and you know the says Ishtoy, the only way to explain to Rabbi Yehuda is like that, and therefore it's logical the Beis need to tell it to us. That the meaning excludes the previous meaning, or mashma mimela, and sometimes it's a continuation. Obviously he must argue, and since obviously he must argue, it's not necessary for us to tell it us. A couple more. The Torah says that Torah should sprinkle the tummy. The word Torah is spare. There's a big machlokes. Why is the word Torah spare? But the simple explanation is, since it's an avodah in the Beis Hamikdash, it would be obvious that you would use a Torah person. Torah michlashu tummy. Limit al tvul yom shekosher b'por, that tvul yom is permitted to work and do all the avodas of the por. Meaning, if a person touches a shirt, you go outside now and you pick up a lizard. What's the din? Your tummy. A dead lizard. It has to be a dead lizard. Now, what happens if you go to mikvah? You still tummy?
No.
No, your tummy. Well, you are tummy until nacht, which is very shortly. So then you'll be tummy till. So that's the first mishnah. Now. So again, so if you touch a dead lizard, you're tummy till nacht. So what happens is like this: in between toiveling and waiting for nacht, you've got the status of a tvul yom. There's one thing a tvul yom is allowed to eat. No, a tvul yom is not allowed to eat until nacht. Maisa is allowed to eat. It's a more vomits, but maisa, most things is not allowed to eat. Okay, so tvul yom is usually considered generally a bit tummy. You're not allowed to eat truma until nacht. That's why the kohanim would generally eat truma only for supper. Why? Because to be very, very careful not to be tummy is quite difficult. So what happens is they would tovel a few minutes before nacht, then go to they can wait for nacht and then eat, and then they could eat the truma because then it was unlikely that they were tummy. And that's the first mishnah when we should say shema. Now, the halacha is that regarding the avodah of the parah aduma, etvul yom, meaning somebody who's tovel and hasn't yet waited for nacht is allowed. Mentioned very, very briefly, and the whole we said from Rashi right at the beginning of this Masechta, that the halacha is that this halacha that Stukim didn't agree with, and because the Stukim didn't agree with, every time after doing huge amounts of effort to keep him toy, ad kedei kach they would have the babies born in special stone houses over arches, that there should be no tumah. On the day that he would do that avodah, what would they do? Make him tummy. Had made him tummy. Do you remember? Rashi says sheretz. Tosa says, just touch him. Just touching him and stand your dime is a sheni. Very good. But the Maisa, so Rashi says, why in the world do we make so much effort to go against the tztukim? The answer is because the tztukim would be more machmir. And the Yitzhahor, when he's being more machmir, sometimes a fumma cheshbon can be more difficult to uproot. Okay. So that's the end of this sugi. Omavasi. Rabbi Yehuda would learn the parsha of Paul. They would not get out of it. The amount that the fox gets when he walks through a plowed field. In English, we would say they only scratched the surface, meaning that they were unable to delve deeper than what we just did. And what did we just do? That sometimes this mashma is uproots the previous, and sometimes mashma mimela. That's all they got to, meaning they were unable to change the flow of the psukim, and some of the psukim uproot the previous psukim, namely two. And that is the pasuk of Alokach Loza Akim, which already knows a Loza, Rav and Shmuel, how to uproot it. And the other one is, but it says, by the sprinkling, there's a Retova B'Mayim Ishtoy to uproot the previous pasuk regarding the sprinkling. Now, if somebody would ask, regarding Parah Aduma and regarding the Kav Yom Kippur, can a Yisroel shechter? Rav says that he's allowed to shecht only on Yom Kippur, not on Parah Aduma. And Shmuel says he's only allowed to shecht on Parah Aduma, not, and he's got to the Shochday Solofonov, etc. Tony Talek Rabbi, look at Ashchitas Kshers Bezor, a so is out to shecht everything. Go and say this outside. What you're saying is incorrect. We've never found a shchita zor is possible. Does a Birchen agree to Rav or to Shmuel? Very good. You saw it inside. He doesn't agree with either. I tried to trick you by saying does he agree with Rav and Shmuel. I hope one of you would say either Rav or Shmuel. It's neither. Why? According to Rav, he can't shecht a po adum. According to Shmuel, he can't shecht a Yom Kippur. But he says he saw allowed to shecht everything. Oh. Rabbi Yehuda not only he wasn't listening to this price, and he didn't even listen to his Rebbe. Why? That he saw that shechs padum is possible. We've never found that shchita is possible by zor, and therefore, according to Rabbi Yehuda, he's got three opinions if you want to memorize it. According to Rabbi Yehuda Moshe, a saw is allowed to do every single shchita, pa aduma, pa Yom Kippur, everything is allowed to shecht. According to Rav, he's allowed to shecht everything with the exception of pa aduma. According to Shmuel, he's allowed to shecht everything exception of the pa Yom Kippur. Now the Mishnah tells us that he would come to the same cow and do vidui. Then he did vidui once, the first time for him and his family, the second time for the whole Shevet Kahuna. So God says, why the first time does not mention Shevet Kahuna, the second time yes? Why can't he just say them all in one go? It's anyway on the same cow. If it's anyway on the same cow, it's not like he's doing a new kapah on a new cow. Told Rabbi Yisroel, this is the correct way. That's how it should be given. Rather, a person who's a zakai should come to mechapa, not a chayav. And we first want to be that they can God them to be free of sin before he starts doing a kapah for other people. The Reunion writes, Reunion and Ovis, very beautiful. He says, don't bother darshaning to people what's right. You behave in a good way, and then people will learn from you. Some people, some people are able to dash the very lot about how to do things right, but when you watch them, you don't see that same level. And Rabbi says, doesn't work. If you want people not to talk in shul, the best way is not to talk to shul and shul yourself. That is the guaranteed way. Start telling people, usually they will listen. This doesn't work. So you want the Kohen God to happen other people. The way to do it is he should be a couple. Now we're coming to much lighter topics, and we're discussing at great length the order of the avodah on Yom Kippur. So what's he done so far? He's done, by the way, the entire morning service of the Talmud Shel Shachar. So he came up to me, he wasn't aware of this. We had it in the Mishnah. So fortunately, we're doing the Mishnah so fast. He has already done the Keteros. That means he's already done the normal Keteros, not the special Keteros of Yom Kippur. He's already done the candles, cleaned them and lit them. He's already done cleaned the inside his beach. He's already done the Korban Tomid. All that he did in gold clothes. After that, he toveled and washed his hands and feet twice, once before, once after. And then what did he do? He did vidui once on his cow. After he did vidui once on his cow, he went and did the lottery. After he did the lottery, he went back to do a second vidui on his cow. And so when he did the lottery, he tied a string, right? And now we're continuing. Maybe, Ben, if you don't mind, to use for the next few pictures to put it onto all the way from, all the way till this, okay, all the way to the end of this one. So it's from here. If you can, it's to put, I should have told you before the show. Okay, the Mishnah is very light Mishnah, nice, easy picturing Mishnah of all the things that you need to do. It's actually in those papers, there's also a couple of pictures. Shochtoi, finally now he shechts his cow. The kibel bebizukas domo, he has to catch the blood himself. We mentioned once before, the Kohen does everything. He does both the shechita and the catching of the blood. When he gave it to somebody to stir it. On the fourth slab. The reason why he gave it to somebody to stir it, because blood congeals quite fast. And if he didn't give it to somebody to stir it, congeal, he won't be able to do zvika. And he doesn't do zvika straight away. Why does he do zvika straight away? Because he's got that way to do in between. So he has to give it to somebody to stir. Give it to him on the fourth slab. There's a nice picture which Benny's putting up on his phone, but even without the picture, you can picture it. When you've got rows of slabs, what happens is you then go along the avodah of the Beis Hamikdash, and then it's the fourth row on the slabs of the Beis Hamikdash. Okay. Shebehechot. The Gemara will describe what it means exactly. Shebehechot. Kadesh Yikvesh Shun Konshio. Not al machta. Now, what's he going to do is very briefly. He's going to take coals in one pan, and he's going to take ketovas, which the English translation is frankincense, which I don't find the word very smooth. I don't know if anybody means anything to them, so we'll use the word ketovas. In another pan, he's going to walk with the two pans into the Kodesh HaKadoshim and put the ketovas onto the fire pan, and that way make a beautiful smell in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So before that, he has to get coals. Where is he going to get coals from? So the Mishnah says like this: Not al machloto. And those who don't have the smartphones can you listen to this? Not al machto. Oh, so here, by the way, just here he's giving it to someone to disturb it, if you can see, and he stands in the fourth row. So if you look carefully, what they've done is they've counted 4 rows, and then he goes and he stands in the fourth row outside the heichal. Then he walks up the ramp with an empty pan. Pan's not probably the right word. Shovel would probably be a more correct word. And he goes inside and he takes from the inner coals in order that he should have burning coals. He moves the coal side to side. He takes from the burnt inside. He puts it next to the person who's stirring the blood. He puts the fire pan there because he's not yet ready straight away to go into the Beis Hamikdash and to do the avodah of the keteros. Now the Mishnah tells us some of the differences between a normal day, because you must remember the keteros was done every day, to the keteros done on Yom Kippur. So every day, twice a day, you would go onto the Mizbeach HaPnimi, the inside Mizbeach. You would put coals on the roof of the Mizbeach. There was no fire burning there. You would just take coals from the outside Mizbeach, put them on. Then you take keteros and put it on, and then later you'd clean it all off, and then you do it again in the afternoon twice a day. So the Mishnah tells some of the differences. Every day you would scoop with silver and pour it into gold. The reason is we want to save Klal Yisrael money. So it's actually a very important principle. It comes out quite a lot. The person should not waste the tzibbur's money. If you're in charge of a shul, of a community, if you waste money, being over. So what happens is like this: getting the coals from the fire would ruin the pan eventually, the shovel. And you want to use gold because that's a coal, it's very big. So what you do is you take silver and you pour it into the gold. That way it would keep it for longer. On Yom Kippur, we're very, very concerned for the weakness of the Kohen Gadol for 2 reasons. What are the 2 reasons? Fasting, and he stayed up all night. And he has to do everything himself. Okay. So therefore, today we make things easier. He didn't have to pour from one to the other. He would use gold, which was only once a year. So it won't ruin it so much. And then he would take the actual gold and he would take it inside itself. You had to take 3 kab into the Beis Hamikdash. In order to look generous, there's a big Indian to look generous, you would scoop with 4 kav, right? 4 kav. How many kav in the saw very quickly? 6 kav in the saw. How many lug in the kav? 4. How much is be'elach a lug? It's about 0.5 liter in volume. So when we're talking about we have 4 kav, we're talking about 16 lug, which is approximately 8 kilo worth of coals. Right? And then what you do is you pour it onto 3. The idea being that if you scoop with 4 and pour it into 3, what will happen? It will overflow. And that is a covered for the Beis Hamikdash. By Yom, you take in the same one again to save on the energy of the Kohen Gadol. How many kav in the saw? 6. Which is double, which means that quite a lot overflowed. And that's how you would bring it in. Today, let me say, Greece about Yom Kippur is arguing about the rest of the year. According to the Tanakama, you used to use 4 kav. According to Rabbi, you used to use Pasha's 6 kav, and you'd pour it in to look very, very generous, right? It looks nice to be generous. The Chalim was very heavy by Yom Kippur. The rest of the year, they would use a heavy metal. Why? Why would you use a heavy metal? Because it would last longer. Oh, it's much harder when you're trying to shovel. How many kilos we just say? About 8 kilos, and you've got a heavy shovel. It's difficult. They want to keep it for longer. The Hayyim Kala today was made out of very thin gold, which would ruin but make it easier for him to carry. You must remember, I saw the Be'eri points out that a very small thing, but you also had to carry it slightly further. On a normal day, he carries it from the outside Mizbeach to the inside Mizbeach. If you've got a picture of Beis Hamikdash in front of you, it's not so far. There's 22 amas to the entrance of the Heichal, then another 20 amas to the Ulam, and then another bit of Mizbeach Azov. Here is carried all the way to Kodesh HaKadoshim with extra 40 amas. Oh, a huge difference, extra 20 meters. Yeah, if you've got a picture of Beis Hamikdash in front of your eyes, so then what would happen is it was slightly further to walk, right? Here on a normal day, he was taking it from this Mizbeach to that Mizbeach to 12. Today, he's taking it from this Mizbeach into the Kodesh HaKadoshim, so it's further to walk. So that's another reason I want to make it lighter for him. Okay. It have a short handle, it would have a very long handle. The advantage of a very long handle is, you've got here, can you see the picture? You've got a very long handle. You can then put the end of the handle underneath your armpit, and then it's much easier to hold. Oh, also get hot. Someone talks about it later. Very interesting idea that it would get hot, and if you've got a longer handle, it's easier. We'll discuss this later. But it will make it easier if it's got a long handle. It would have Yoik gold. Now, I saw the word Yoik means green, but the word Yoik is not literally green, because usually it says yellowish, orangish. Some say it's like a what? What's the Oscar trying to say to Yoik, by the way? Yellow. Translate to yellow. That's interesting. Okay. So yellow gold. Vayom Odom today was red gold. Red gold was far, far more expensive, and also would remind him of the cows. Divrei Nachem Pascha says this. It is interesting. This is not Pascha in the Rambam. The question is why not? Have you ever seen red gold? I haven't, but it seems there's such thing as red gold. Have you ever seen red gold? Oh, you should bring it in.
I don't have any.
Anyway, yeah. The mice again. Red gold was more precious, and also it's to remind him of the fact that he did a lot of zrika with the red. Okay, we'll see. Ram doesn't pass on it. There's some say because he held Divrei Menachem. Menachem says it doesn't mean that we agree with him. Others say that Ram held wasn't ma'akev. Of course, we pass on it. Yeah. Yeah, but it was very, very, very thin. Very, very thin. He's asking a very good question, the Tzalul. If it was pure gold, I wonder if everything we have to say was a ness. Pashtas, we see that they didn't rely all on this because they made a long handle and everything else. No, so obviously they made it thick enough that it would hold the coals, but not heavy. So it must have made it thicker than that, thick enough that it could cope with the coals. B'chol yom, every day, Makiv Prasper, Shachas of Prasper Darbaim, would bring half a mana in the morning and half a mana in the afternoon. By Yom on Yom Kippur, Moisef Olechofnof, you'd add his handfuls. B'chol yom Moisef Daka, every day it was, Daka is thin, it's grinded fine. By Yom Daka and Daka on Yom Kippur, it was grounded even more than a normal day, it was extra fine. B'chol yom, Kohanim Oilim, when the Kohanim would go up to the Mizbeach, it's disrespectful to walk on the Mizbeach for no reason. So you go on the Mizbeach, you always go on the right, and then you go round the Mizbeach that way. If you go up the middle and go along the Mizbeach on your right, that is disrespectful because you're walking the Mizbeach for no reason. So it's interesting, so you pointed out to me that England would drive on the left, but the Meissen saw the drive on the right. And it's a good way to remember that the way to go up the Mizbeach is the way that they drive in Eretz Yisrael. And the Mishka is not the Kohen Gadol drives the middle. Somebody said to me, I don't know if any of you have been on King's Road. The only way to get King's Road is if you drive down the middle, because unfortunately there's cars parked on both sides, you can never get through. So it's the way to get, you must remember, you have to go up on the right. Why do you have to go up on the right? Because the zone of is there, to go up in the middle and not when you get there, you go through. Okay. Again, let's do it inside. You'd come down as soon, when you went round the Mizbeach, you'd come down on the western side, which is the first time you could. Yeah, if you got a picture in your mind, you go up on your right, you go round, and you come down. Again, this was easier for him because he didn't have to stick to the sides, and also it showed the chashivos, how precious he was. If you look at Rashi, let's just see Rashi, the last second to last Rashi is Vayom Kohen Gadol Marek Voidoi Vechiboson Shalisor Shu Shluchan is the messenger of Yisroel ben Beis. So therefore, he wants to show that he's beloved and his precious lights of Hashem, a child, and he comes into his house. You don't tell him which way around to walk inside the house. So in Yom Kippur, he walked in the middle. Every day the Kohen Gadol would always walk up the middle and down the middle, not on the sides. It would wash his hands from the kiyur. From a golden jug. Every single day, he would wash his hands from a golden jug. So it's machlokes on a normal day. What did the Kohen Gadol use to wash his hands and feet, the kiyah or golden jug? And now we have a machlokes, a three-way machlokes. How many fires on the mizbeach on a normal day, and how many on Yom Kippur? On Yom Kippur, they needed an extra fire for what? For the keteros which went inside the Beis Hamikdash, you'd have to have coals. They would take the coals from an extra bonfire. And here, I don't know why they bothered, but they made loads of different pictures. So you see, here's 4 fires, 5 fires, 3 fires. It's a whole load of machlokes in how many fires they had. They do make an effort to put the fires at least in the right side of where it's supposed to be. So the rest you can imagine it yourself. 4 bonfires, every day 3, today 4. The Gemara goes in detail to explain the 3-way machlokes, how many fires there were. I just do one line with one, I'm going to stop. The Mishnah says that he would stir the blood on the 4th slab, shebehechel. The simple translation, shebehechel, means within the hechel, which sounds like he was standing inside the Beis Hamikdash stirring the blood. That nobody's allowed to go into the Moed. So what's he doing? Stirring the blood in the Moed. Of the hechel, meaning 4 rows from the hechel. If I say 4 rows of the hechel, do I mean in the hechel or of the hechel from the hechel? So therefore, indeed, he didn't actually, if you look at the pictures which they kindly put up for us, he didn't go in the hechel, but rather 4 rows out of the hechel. Because you see, there is 4 rows out of the hechel from the hechel. Shkoyach, everybody. Right, very good. Okay, we're up to now Tanu Rabbanan, which is the bottom line on the Gimel Beis.